Today I will talk about contingency tables using raw data. So I spoke before about contingency tables. They're used to study patterns that may exist between the responses of two or more categorical variables. Cross-tabulates or tallies jointly the responses of the categorical variables. For two variables, the tallies for one variable are located in the rows and the tallies for the second variable are located in the columns. So if you watched my previous video, we did an example with a contingency table. So this table is already summarized for us. So this dealt with the errors and no errors and the size of the job, if it was a small amount, medium amount, or a large amount. Okay, so you have your row categorical variable, and then you have your column categorical variable. Okay, so what happens if we're not given a summary table like that? Sometimes we may be given the raw data and we are asked to create our own contingency table. So let's look at this example. The following data represent the responses to two questions asked in the survey of 40 college students majoring in business. One question is, what is your gender? So you have M for male, F for female. And the other is, what is your major? A, accounting, C, computer information systems, and M for marketing. So as you can see, this is the raw data that's given. So they talked to the first person who was male and his major is accounting. They talked to the second person who was also male and his major was computer science or computer information systems and so on. So when you look at this, you're like, oh wow, this is a lot of data. How do I go about putting this into a contingency table? So we're not going to do it by hand. What we're going to do is we're going to have StatCrunch and Excel do it for us. Right, so the question is, tally the data into a contingency table where two rows represent the gender categories and the three columns represent the academic major categories. So this is the answer right here. I'm going to show you how to do this in StatCrunch. Okay, so I have my data already in here. I have my, the gender in the first column and major in the second column. Okay, so you have to make sure that they match up just like it is in the table. So you got male, the first one was male and his major was accounting. So you got to make sure it corresponds, they correspond to each other. All right, so to do this in StatCrunch, I am going to go to Stat, Tables, then we want Contingency. But this time we want with data. We're not given a summary. This time we're given the actual data. So I'm going to click on Data. It told you that they want the rows to be gender and the columns to be the academic major. And I'm going to click Compute. And this is my table. So that's what you just saw on my screen, on my PowerPoint. Okay, so as you can see, it was 6 females that majored in accounting. You have 6 females that majored in computer information systems. And then for males, they had 2 males majoring in marketing. So this is how you would read the table. And then they have the total column and then the total row going across. All right, so let's go ahead and answer the rest of the questions on this PowerPoint. So the next question asks, construct contingency tables based on percentages of all 40 student responses, based on row percentages and based on column percentages. So they're asking us to construct 3 contingency tables. The first one is percentages of total. There were 40 students, so they want percentages of all 40 student responses. So consider that percentages of total. Okay, so I gave you the answers right here, but let's go ahead and do this in StatCrunch. So once again, we're going to go to Tables, Contingency with Data, Gender, and then Major for the column. And this time we want to click on percent of total. Percent of total. And when we do that, we get our answer. So the answers that you see in parentheses, that is the percent of the total. So if you recall, go back to my slide, If you recall in my last video, I demonstrated how to calculate these. So let's say we wanted, sorry, let's say we wanted to figure out how did they get this 15%, where the total is 40%. And so we're going to look at the 6. We're going to take 6 divided by 40, and we get 0.15, which is 15%. So all the numbers that you see in the table will be divided by that 40. All right. The next one says we're going to construct it based on row percentages. So if we go back to StatCrunch, this time we're going to do row. So once again, go to Tables, Contingency with Data. We have Gender and Major. And this time we're going to do row percentages. And hit Compute. And the answers that you see in the parentheses will be the answers for the row percentages. So how do we get this? So I demonstrated this in another video. What you'll do here is you're looking at rows. So these are the rows. So you're going to take 6 and divide it by its row total. In this case, it's 15. You should get 0.4, which is 40%. You do the same thing for here. Take this 14 divided by its row total is 25. You should get 0.56 or 56%. Okay. The next one asks us to do the column percentages. Okay, so once again we'll have StatCrunch do this for us. We go to Stat, Tables, Contingency with Data, Gender, Major, and this time we want column percentages. And this will be the answers in parentheses. So how do we get these? We took the numbers in the table and divided it by the total in the bottom row. So if we go back, if you took the 6, you're going to divide it by the column row. So that's 20. You get 0.3 or 30%. Alright, so that is how you do it in StatCrunch. What we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how to do it in Excel. So I have my data already in Excel. The first column is gender, the second column is major. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another column. I'm going to call it values. So it's 40 data values in this table. So what I'm going to do is I need to type 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way down to 40. But there's a shortcut way of doing it. I'm going to type in 1 and then I'm going to type in 2. So Excel recognizes that it's a sequence of numbers. So I'm going to select both of these numbers and then I'm going to take this arrow and go all the way down to my last row. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way down to 40 pops up. So here we're going to have to make use of a pivot table. So to do a pivot table, we're going to click on Insert, and you should see a pivot chart. I'm going to click on it. It should say Pivot Chart or Pivot Table. So it's going to ask me where is my range of data values. So my data values go from column A to C, and it goes all the way down to cell 41. So I'm going to highlight that. As you can see, the dotted lines are moving. And then it's going to ask me, where do I want to put this pivot table? So I'm going to put it in the same worksheet where I have my data values. I'm just going to have it moved over a little bit. So let's say I put it in cell G3. Okay, I hit OK. And now it's going to ask you, where do you want your rows and where do you want your columns? Now my Excel says legend series and axis categories. I know when I used to do Excel with this, it used to actually say rows and then it would actually say columns. But for some reason, I don't know if Excel updated, but I get these words here. So it may be a little confusing to figure out where do they go. So axis categories would be my rows. So I'm going to click gender and I'm going to move it down here to axis categories. And then the legend series will be the major. Oops, let me go back. I gotta take that out. All right, so major I want to be over here, right? Then now the next thing I want to do is take these values, the values column, and put it under values. So I'm going to click on this and move it here. Oh, two of them popped up, so I'm going to delete one of these, remove field. All right. So what happens is you're going to see something that says sum of values. We don't want the sum. What it's doing is taking up all the values and adding them up. We don't want that. We need to change this to a count. So I'm going to click on this and then I'm going to do value field settings. And this box would come up and then you want to click on count and hit OK. For some reason this chart comes up. I don't want this. I'm going to delete this out. All right, but as you can see, we get our table. We get our contingency table. So I'm going to open these up a little bit more. And this table is the same as the contingency we just created in StatCrunch. It has the same values. Okay? So now you're going to ask yourself, well, how do I get the percent of total, the row percentages, and the column percentages? Well, what you do is you're going to click on one of these cells and then you're going to right click and you're going to go down to where it says show values as. And if you look, it gives you your options. So if we wanted the percent of total, we are going to click on percent of grand total. And as you can see, all of the numbers come up as percentages. So this should be the same as your grand total. So if we go back to our Excel, percent of total, we got 15, 15, 7.5, 35, 22.5, and 5. So let's see if that's what we get in our table. Yes. Okay, so it matches up. If I wanted to do row percentages, I'm going to click on anything, any cell. I'm going to right click and then I'm going to go to value field settings. Oops, sorry, that's not what I wanted. I want to click on it. I want to show values as, I'm sorry. And then we want to do row total, percent of row total. And when we click on that, it pops up as percentages. If we wanted to do column, once again, click on any cell in there, right click, show values as, percent of column total. And it'll change everything. So these numbers should match up to what we had here. We got 30, 40, 60, 70, 60, 40. And let's see if that's the same thing. Yes, it is. Okay, so now you know how to do contingency tables, raw data using StatCrunch and Excel.